So what we've got is a breed of owners now who don't want to make losses. They want to know that they are going to be playing each other, making a ton of money, and that they cannot be knocked off their perches. If you're talking about a pyramid, that's gone.
Welcome to the latest episode of Season 2 of Football Uncovered. In Season 1, we took you inside Blackburn and Leeds, Portsmouth and Liverpool, FIFA and a lot more. Heard about extraordinary stories of football chaos, cock-ups and outright corruption. This season, we're going inside 8 more Premier League clubs, as well as having 2 special episodes, one about life after Premier League and one about the very future of club football. And this is the episode about the future of football. I'm your host, Will Brazier, and with me every episode, like always, it's Nick Harris from Sporting Intel. Nick, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Really looking forward to this, and good to go.
Sorry, Nick, I cut you. I mean, by episode 8, we should have chemistry flowing off the charts, but I've just cut you off and I feel like a prat. But this season, we're not just alone. We're joined by a special guest each week, usually a fan of the club we're talking about, or someone who has followed the subject very closely and knows all the inside stories. Today's guest is Tariq Panja, hugely respected sports reporter with the New York Times and co-author of Football's Secret Trade, a book about the dark underbelly of the global football transfer market. Tariq is a specialist in the goings-on at FIFA, UEFA and in sports politics in general. Tariq, how are you?
I'm good. Good to be with you guys. I'm a huge fan of football's underbelly, so happy to be with you.
I guess what we're discussing today is what is the point of elite club football in the future if that's how it's going to be, run by a few handfuls of massive clubs wanting power and money.
In terms of like our football pyramid, how catastrophic could it be for that? Would that sort of almost ruin this sort of dream that you could start in the 14th tier of football and work your way up to the Premier League?
As far as the super clubs or the big clubs are concerned, I think they want to destroy the pyramid because it's a business. And this is kind of at the heart of all of this. It shouldn't be just a business, but it really is. And we've kind of allowed it to happen. When I say we, I guess the structures, state or European Union, whatever you want to call it, there was a social dimension to football. Nick's kind of talked about it a bit in what he said, but these clubs mean a lot more than like a biscuit company or a rivet company, etc. But they are treated that way. There's so much passion, and it's such a driver of people's emotions and their lives. Perhaps you can argue sometimes too much, but they mean a lot, and they haven't been protected at all. There've been no protections. So these owners, this breed of owners now, I mean, a lot of them, I read an interview with in The Athletic with James Pallotta the other day, and he kind of said, I didn't know anything about football at all, and I learned. So why did you invest in it? He invested in it because he thought he was going to make some money out of it, whatever these guys say. And maybe, and I'm not going to say they're not going to enjoy it, because once you're in there, you're in, and that crowd is in there, there's the atmosphere, and you own this thing, it must feel good. But that is not what brought them to these clubs. Or the glory. They bought them because they thought they can make more money and a lot more. The Glazers didn't have any particular attraction to Manchester United beyond this is going cheap. We can get this for a song, and we'll be off to the races, and they have. So what we've got is a breed of owners now who want consistent returns, who don't want to make losses, and who want to ensure that they are always going to be at the top. So the jeopardy that Nick and I talked about earlier, they don't like that. They might like it maybe at the end, for the playoff bit, for the final or whatever, but they don't want that. For 80% of the season, they want to know that they are going to be playing each other, making a ton of money, and that they cannot be knocked off their perches. And if you're talking about a pyramid, that's gone as far as they're concerned, or that'll be underneath them. All the twee kind of traditional bits that everyone likes. Yeah, we'll let you like it, and we'll talk it up as well and say, yeah, we support this as long as it doesn't mess with our plan. So yeah, your friend's team, good luck to them. They can rise only so far, and a sport is structured so far as how they want it to be, and maybe that was always going to be the direction of travel. I don't think so. I think there should have been some sort of regulation here, either at the EU level or national level, to protect some of these sort of foundational principles. but the ship has sailed a bit. I don't know if that can be brought back. Nick,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I've been doing this job for 25 years, and we've been talking about governance of football in England alone for all the time that I've worked in it, and it's never moved on. You've had successive governments claiming that that at some point they'll look at a regulator for football or an independent ombudsman in this country. It hasn't happened here. It doesn't happen pretty much anywhere else. I think Tariq's right, the ship sailed. And also in terms of the pyramid, forget, ultimately, if we take this to its extreme logical conclusion, then the pyramid is dead, because when you're talking, I know we've name-checked the Glazers, but we can look at Stan Kroenke at Arsenal as well. No surprise, they're both Americans. But if you look at the structures in Americans, when you have closed shop leagues where there is no relegation and you're guaranteed X percentage of the revenues that come in, and they're huge revenues, and you're guaranteed to make a profit as well as having asset appreciation on the value. That's the model that they're used to. That's the model that they like. That is ideally probably the model they would like to see in place in elite European football, a closed shop Super League, which ends hope, competition, and aspiration for everybody else. I think that is the end game. And I guess it's a case of how long is it going to take to get there, rather than will we get there? And obviously I'd like to think that we won't get there, and you could go back, but you know, that horse has bolted.
Tariq, how many different versions of a European Super League have you reported on, and can you remember?
There have been loads, and there have been these groups as well. And Nick, you remember G14, etc.
Yeah.
So you have these groups of these big teams that will have these conversations. And just moving it to where we are now, we can come back to that. In only the last few years, every time there is a negotiation for the Champions League rights, so TV negotiations, this starts appearing. So I remember one in about 2015-16, after those guys had been arrested, and Michel Platini had been sort of defrocked as the UEFA president. The clubs saw a chance and they tried it on them as well. And what they did, they managed to get a load of concessions from like a really bruised UEFA, a leaderless UEFA at the time. So the clubs ended up getting more money than before. The teams that were outside of England managed to secure some of England's TV revenue, which is the biggest in Europe. And that happened really quickly. And a lot of people were really frustrated about that. And then since then, we had the football leaks, which showed that, I guess, a modern day Silvio Berlusconi would be Florentino Perez, the businessman that runs Real Madrid. He's always dreamed of a Super League, and his plan was unveiled in the football leaks period. He had a project with a company called Key Capital Partners, and he wanted a closed league. Since then, we had the Americans who run the ICC, the International Champions Cup, that pre-season in America, wanting to do something. And most recently, and this is the one I think has had the kind of most teeth, the most evolved, most detailed, has been one that has been pushed and promoted by the Glazer family, particularly Joel Glazer, with the banks, and also has John Henry and the Liverpool mob involved in creating a very detailed plan that also includes a type of financial fair play, how the revenue will be split, what the competition will look like. Extremely detailed paperwork that leaked to the media a month or two ago, and they were ready to push the button. They were so sure that they had this plan in place. There were letters of intent sent around, etc. And that was happening at the same time, Nick, as Will, as Project Big Picture. I don't know if you remember. I mean, so much has happened in the last few months. This was a plan to basically seize control of the Premier League by these English teams. So we're at a point where the Super League idea has evolved to almost like a point where it's a turnkey operation. If they disagree with UEFA, they can press the button and they're off. And that to me seems quite a nerve-wracking moment if you're the rest of football, right?
Yeah, and it was got to the extent, in fact, just a few months ago, where the outgoing president of Barcelona actually announced that Barcelona were going to join a breakaway European Super League and had agreed to do so. I mean, which is extraordinary. They said, we're now going to do this. We're off. Obviously, that hasn't happened, because we'll come on to the fact that actually, is it all just part of a negotiation for the inevitable restructuring of the Champions League in their favour? I would say yes. But for the president of Barcelona to announce, we've agreed to join a breakaway Super League, and as Tariq rightly said, the same people who were sort of the architects of this latest iteration of a breakaway Super League, which is Joel Glazer and John Henry, were also the architects of Project Big Picture, which proposed giving all the power and more of the money to the Premier League's biggest clubs, principally, Manchester United, owned by the Glazers, Liverpool, and those other big clubs, giving 7 clubs effectively the power to make the decisions, as opposed to 14. And quite rightly, the Project Big Picture was seen for what it was, and widely derided, and it will never get off the ground in the way that they foresaw it. But that absolutely clearly showed their intentions. This is how much they care about the wider football. They don't. They just want the money, the power at national level, and obviously at club football level.
Let me just, on last point on this Super League, is one of the other biggest proponent of this with Man U and Liverpool is another team that's owned by Americans, which is AC Milan, and they're crap. And I mean to say this, right? And and whose fault is it that they're crap? It's whoever ran them. And football has that. You go up and you go down. You have, and then they're looking like they're improved this year. So let me be fair to them. They look like they could be coming back. But for the last 5-7 years, AC Milan have been terrible. So we're a certain age. AC Milan are an enormous team as far as we're concerned. Now, I don't know, my nephew or younger people, they probably don't think of that because they haven't been relevant for so long. But football doesn't owe AC Milan the right to be massive because they used to be. That's just the nature of sport. Maybe they will at some point. Now, this is one of the teams that is pushing hardest for a Super League, one which they will be in. But what right have they got to be in it? It is absolutely nonsensical. You would have to, so you say, well, look, we're going to take Atlanta out because they're not as big as us. Yeah, but guys, they're better than you. And they have been, and they qualified for the Champions League, and they were really exciting last year. So we're going to lose this stuff because AC Milan say they need to be there. They deserve to be there because they're a massive club. And that one for me is the one I think that really is really frustrating, because it has got nothing to do with their level of performance at all. The others, you could argue they if there was going to be a top tier league, the other participants in it on form probably merit being there because they've been playing really well and they're there. But it's the ones who have frittered away all the natural advantages they had, have run their club into the ground, and saying, well, like save us, and because we're massive club FC, it doesn't work like that.